Today's video was supposed to be about the Sony A6400, but now it's going to be about the Nikon Z-30. There's a little story behind it, and I'll tell you about it, but let's get to it. There are a bunch of specifications to this camera, and there's a whole list of them. And I'm going to give you a really great resource to do some comparisons between cameras, or just look up the individual specs on a camera. There is a website called Camera Decisions. And if you just go into Google and you type in something along the lines of Z30 versus VS Sony A6400, one of the companies that comes up will be this Camera Decisions. And they will give a side-by-side comparison of both of the cameras. They'll tell you what all the features are. They'll tell you why it may be better in this situation, or this other camera has these features that this one doesn't have, and they have a point system. And they'll give you a points as to, according to the specs, how the camera rates. It's a wonderful resource. I suggest you use it when you're trying to get technical information on a product that you're wanting to purchase or do a comparison. It's a wonderful resource for comparison. On that website, Camera Decisions, I did that because I was comparing these two cameras together. So the Z30 versus the Sony A6400. And to my surprise, when it came up with the specs, there was a list this long with just a bunch of specifications for each camera, and they were basically identical. To be honest, the Sony scored a 59 over the Nikon. The Nikon scored a 56. Now, that 59 rating was based on all the features that the camera has, and I will say that the Sony camera has a little flash in it and a tiltable flash, and that helped it score a little higher. The Sony also had a 24 megapixel sensor, where the Nikon has a 21 megapixel sensor. So that helped it go from the 56 to the 59. That's for scoring. But for what your purposes are, things may be completely different. To be honest with you, I cannot tell you the last time I used a built-in flash on a camera. If I'm going to use flash, I have an external flash unit that I put on. I'm sure there are situations, if you're traveling and you don't want to carry a lot of gear, that you will use that tiny little flash that comes with the camera. But me personally, I find myself never using that. As a matter of fact, if I'm in a mode where it pops that little flash up, I switch out of that mode, or I disengage that little pop-up flash. So that wasn't a feature that I was looking for. It was flash in the camera. I'm looking for a camera that I can use to shoot the YouTube video. Now, as a little disclaimer, I would say this. As I really wanted to bring the Sony into the house, and I was going to get an adapter that converted all of my Canon lenses over to the Sony. So there was a practicality there. At the same time, I do have Nikon lenses. But to be completely honest, I've always liked Nikon cameras. I think the functionality of the buttons and the menus that work together are a very good combination. So I've always very much liked the Nikon cameras. Not so much the Nikon lenses. I found them to be lacking a little bit in what I want for my imagery. And that being said, you don't have to put a Nikon lens on a Nikon camera. You can go to Sigma, and you can go to Taniqua, or you can go to Tamron. All these companies make lenses for the Nikon camera, so you can still get the clarity. In general, though, I've kind of leaned away from the Nikon because of the fact that the lens choices just weren't there, especially when you're comparing them to the Canon cameras, where there's astronomical amount of lens options that you have. Now, these cameras were, I think, predominantly designed for bloggers. They're lightweight, they're easy to put on a small tripod and do your blogging with. But at the same time, they're packed with some amazing, just regular still photography pictures. These things have filters in them, so you can pick a specific filter, like morning light, you know, like golden hour. There's a filter that you can choose inside here that will give you that effect. So there's a lot of wonderful still imagery photography that are built into these things, which makes them fantastic. They're small, they're lightweight, and they got a huge amount of options inside. Now, between the Nikon and the Sony, there were some features I did like. Now, we discussed the fact that the flash didn't matter to me, so if that bumped it up in the point system, that's fine. Megapixels, that didn't matter a whole lot because I personally can't tell 21 megapixels from 24. I can't see it. So that didn't matter. Plus, I'm using it for a video camera. Now, one of the neat features of the Nikon that surprised me was the fact that it has focus bracketing. And if you don't know exactly what focus bracketing is, I have a video on that goes into great detail. But basically, it takes a bunch of multiple focus points and stacks them together so you have an image that's crystal clear. That depth of field thing that really doesn't exist is eliminated by having these focusing points stacked together and giving you crystal clear imagery. The Nikon also has digital video stabilization. So when you're shooting video, there's a stabilization in size. Yes, it does crop down a little bit, but you have that. You have that feature that I wasn't going to get in the A6400. And as far as the USB is concerned, this has a 3.2, so it's a little faster on transfer of information. Both of those cameras are fantastic cameras. What it came down to me was I made a fantastic deal on this one. If I had made a fantastic deal on the Sony A6400, it would be sitting here right now. So you have to weigh the pros and cons of the features, but you also have to weigh the pros and cons of what you're willing to pay for your new piece of equipment. I was pleasantly surprised too about the kit lens that came with this camera. It's a DX16-50. And it does a really good job. Initially, when I got the camera, I immediately ordered the adapter so I could put on my other Nikon lenses on the camera. And then I found myself using the kit lens that came with it because it does a really great job. Now, I will tell you this. The one thing that really pushes things for me over the Sony cameras is that. The way this articulating LCD screen comes to the side and you can see it, where Sony has this thing where it just kind of, you can move it around on the back of the camera. It helps somewhat, but there's just times where having that articulating screen come completely around and you're able to look at it in this direction, that's fantastic. Something I did do when I initially got this camera is I got one of the Smallrig 3857s. Now what that is just this little 1/4 inch extension that's put on the bottom of the camera. It actually has a little door on it so that you can open it up and get your battery out a little easier. It gives you a little bit more room. And it mounts to your tripod, so it counts as your tripod mount. On top of that, it has another slide here if you want to put a microphone or a light, and then your little screw attachments on the bottom. And it D-rings on the bottom. It gives the camera a little bit more size to it. It gives it another little pinky amount down there to hold on to it a little better if you're planning to hand hold it. So I would recommend this. I would recommend this little Smallrig adapter that goes on the bottom. It opens up so many more things and it protects the bottom of the camera. So if you just intend to be putting this thing down or on top of counters or wherever, this will help protect the bottom, help keep it in a lot better shape. I'll put a link to it in my comments if you're interested in purchasing one of these. I would recommend it. It's a fantastic little unit for this camera, and once again it gives it a little bit more size. This is a small camera, but it is so packed with features. It's really amazing what they put into this camera. When you think that it was probably initially designed for bloggers to handheld and shoot video, there's a lot of fantastic photography, imagery things going on inside this rig. So I'm really happy for it. But honest and truly, when it came down to it, it came down to a dollar amount. If I had made the same deal on the Sony would be sitting here. Comparable, when you go to that camera decisions, there's lists of features of both of these cameras and they're almost identical. It's almost the same exact camera when it comes to features. This one had a couple little bit extra features that I personally enjoyed in the focus stacking. That just tickled me to death that this was in a small little camera. So very happy with my purchase. This is going to be my new YouTube video camera. Maybe I can give you some more details about it in the future, but just go to that website. Go to the Camera Decisions website. It'll give you all the specs. And if you want to compare it to what you already have, or you want to compare it to something else you're interested in, wonderful sight. Use it. I use it all the time. It's really good. So in conclusion, like I said, this is going to be the new rig for shooting the YouTube videos. I do have a trip planned to Amish country up in Ohio, and I intend to take this off of the tripod and stop using it for my YouTube videos because it's going to be such a great traveling camera. It's lightweight, has tons of features. I don't see the point in bringing a kit bag full of all kinds of different lenses and gear with me with what this thing does. It's really a fantastic little camera. It's dynamite. It's just packed with so many features. It's going to take me a while to learn all these things, or just learn what I need to know to get my functionality out of it. And once again, thanks for stopping by. If you wouldn't mind, please hit that subscribe button, share and like this page. If you have any ideas or any comments, leave them there in the comments section. I'll try to answer any questions you have, and if you have some recommendations, I'd like to hear your recommendations too. So thanks again for stopping by, and I hope you have a great day.